Best of r/malicious compliance episode 76. Subscribe for Reddit videos daily. My brother shared a story with me the other day and I was laughing so hard that I was crying. I figured I would pass it on to you beautiful people on Reddit. My brother used to work in environmental services in a rather large hospital. For those of you not fluent in corporate bullshit, that means he was a janitor. He's had a lot of cleaning duties that took him all over the hospital each day. However, each person was assigned a hallway that they had to maintain during the shift. My brother did not have an issue with this and did all of his work as assigned. At this particular job, he often bumped heads with management, but in fairness, the way he describes it, he was working for a bunch of idiots. I obviously cannot comment on this, but in the time I have known my brother, he has always been an incredibly hard worker and does what he can to provide for his children. So I give him the benefit of the doubt and assume management was just being stupid. On one particular day, the management tried to implement a new rule. All staff members were now supposed to call the boss whenever they left their designated hallway. The bossman, Joe, just wanted a quick notification. I'm sure the reason for this rule made sense at the time, but it's one of those things that is just so stupid no one ever did it. That didn't prevent the boss from trying to enforce the stupid rule though. He harassed everyone, my brother included, all the time about leaving their workspace without notifying him. One day he was really going after my brother hard until finally my brother had enough. He decided that it was best to follow the rule. The very next day he began. At the start of his shift he called his boss, "Hey Joe, I'm going to my hallway now." A few minutes later my brother realized he didn't have enough supplies on his cart, and the required supplies were in the closet 10 feet outside the area he had been assigned. So he called his boss again. "Hey Joe, I need to leave my hallway. I forgot some supplies." He did so. Then once he got back to his hallway, "Hey Joe, I'm back in my hallway now." An hour goes by and wouldn't you know it, he had to use the bathroom. "Hey Joe, I need to go use the bathroom. It's a number 2 in case you were wondering." Then he went to the bathroom. Upon completion of the subtask he went back to the hallway and called again. "Hey Joe, I'm back in the hallway. I had a good bowel movement. No trouble to report there. The color and size all seemed healthy." At this point Joe was getting annoyed, but he couldn't go back on his rule that he had gone through so much trouble to enforce. Meanwhile my brother's calls and many reports became increasingly elaborate. He was no longer just calling to say when he left and came back, but to explain why he was leaving, how long he would be gone, where he was going, etc. Joe eventually stopped picking up his phone, so my brother would just keep calling until he answered. My brother said he thinks he must have called his boss over 150 times during his 8-hour shift, each time leaving a very detailed report. With each report, his boss just replied something along the lines of okay, Chad. Okay. Clearly just wanted to get off the phone. The next day he came back to work and didn't make any calls, and Joe never bothered him or anyone else about calling to check in with him after that. Insert mandatory names are made up statement. Thank you. Next. I used to work for a company that did POS, point of sale, and security for low-end markets. Places with dollar in the name. My job was to assist the field technicians with getting the store back online. The company hired field techs by contract in any given area, so I had to be able to explain what he was looking at, and how we used it. If I was lucky, the call would take about an hour. Our call center techs tried to take care of the field techs as best we could. You find a good one, they can make your day. So, if we had to call the ICE because we found no internet signal to the building, we would offer to call them back once we had the ICE on the line. Along with this, they wanted us to turn over calls as quickly as possible. Well, they came out with a rule that we had to ask permission to make an outgoing call. So, we could keep our tech on the phone for the hour it would take to get through to an ICE, or bug the supervisor for permission to call them back. Guess what option we chose? Now for malicious compliance. We told the field techs what they needed to say, for the recording, so they didn't have to sit with their ear to hold music for 2 hours. Then, when it came time to call them back, we would buzz the supervisor. There were about 50 of us doing this, so the supervisor was running all over, not including normal issues. Sometimes during the wait for the supervisor, the ICE would hang up, so we would have to start again. Our stats dropped like crazy. The policy lasted 4 days. It's more fun when you do malicious compliance. As group, you can give each other ideas. Thank you. Next. Alright, some of you asked me for an update from my post last week about the insurance company who harassed me for reviews despite me never actually using them for anything so far. My old post was this. Well, they did reply, but it was very underwhelming, if a little ominous. See their response here. If I were the paranoid sort, I'd think that was a threat. I'm joking of course, but note the lack of apology or willingness to do anything about it. They didn't even offer me a gift card. Thank you. Next. Hello everybody. Long time reader, first time poster. Love r// and hope he reads this. This happened several years ago, in late 2006. I had just moved out of my previous apartment due to a really bad engagement that went south. In short of that instance, my fiancé got cold feet the week of the wedding, forcing me to cancel everything, costing me thousands of dollars. I barely had any money, and was working as a dietitian in a nursing home in Portland, Oregon. I previously had worked as the drive-thru guy at a McDonald's for about 5 years. That's where I met John, who became my landlord when I began to rent out the empty room in his place. A little about John. John was a disgusting, perverted, elderly pig who was always trying to pick up girls in their teens. He had the most revolting bathroom manner, often leaving behind his refuse in the toilet wherever he went and never flushing. He kept meth heads in his place, and had a mindset that would make most KKK members go whiter than their sheets. He also was an impatient trog who demanded instant gratification on anything he was owed, imagined or otherwise. At the time in question, I was having a scheduling conflict with the manager at my place of employment. This meant sometimes I'd go a whole week without being put on the schedule. My rent was due every Tuesday, as John insisted that rent be paid weekly rather than once a month. I had just quit the job at the nursing home, and started a retail graveyard position at a local adult video store nearby. This meant I had to work a couple weeks till I got my first check. I told John, repeatedly, when my first check would get there, and not only would he get paid for the rent I owed that week, I'd also give him the back pay. Every day, and I mean every day, he'd knock on the door of my room and say, "OP, got any rent for me?" And I'd answer with increasing annoyance that not only did I not have rent yet, I'd remind him of the date he'd get paid. Fast forward to the malicious compliance. The day my paycheck came, like clockwork, John knocks on my door. I endured 2 weeks of constant badgering for my money, and I'd had enough. I almost shout, "Yes, I've got your mfing money." John smiled with that same gross, disgusting smile I've seen him flash teenage girls, and he insists I accept a ride to go right to my bank. I begrudgingly accept, and we drive to a popular supermarket on the West Coast, and I enter my now defunct bank. They were very familiar with me, as only 6 months earlier they helped facilitate the transfer of almost $100K of my inheritance. When I get to my favorite teller, I ask to cash my check. They ask how I want it. I get an impish idea. I ask for all $2,000 of my rent to be given to me in $1 bills. The man looked like I'd just pulled a gun on him, and asked me why in God's name would I want that. I explained that I'd been harassed, and bullied, and badgered by my landlord, and gestured over my shoulder to him sitting in the lobby. Almost instantly, teller's face turns into an equally impish grin. He informs me that he's very aware of John's mutual harassment and obscenity towards young girls. He calls over the bank manager, who also was quite familiar with John, and we three decide to go ahead with the plan. When the money had been gathered and counted, I had a brick of $1 bills that looked like it belonged in a music video or Bond film. I walked over to John, who looked like he had just won the lottery. "Got my rent?" he asked. "Yup," I reply, and handed him the brick. His face went from one of abject joy to utter repugnance. You would have thought I'd just handed him a dirty diaper instead of $2K cash. "What's this?" he asked, already knowing what it was but requesting clarification by the tone of his voice. "I owe you $2K. That's the $2K I owe you. These are $1 bills." He grumbled, sounding very annoyed. "Sorry John, but their truck from the reserve hasn't come yet today, and they only have $1 till then." "Sorry," I lied. "They don't have any 5s, 10s, 20s, 50s, or 100s? Not at all?" he asked. Nope, that's all they have. Now since you're paid, I have to go do some shopping. I left, patting him on the shoulder in a manner that anyone watching could clearly tell was a way of flipping him off. I watched him approach the counter and speak with Nice Teller. Nice Teller also said the same thing, that there were only $1 bills in the bank. He called for Nice Manager, who also told him the same thing. He stormed, or as much as someone with a walker could storm out of the place. When I got home, I had an eviction notice on my door, but by that point, I didn't even care. I'd made my point, and he learned not to harass me ever again. When it came for me to pay my final rent, about $500, I got it, but this time in pennies. I left the massive load of pennies on his doorstep, and never stepped foot in that house again. TLDR, got harassed by my landlord for back rent. Told him when he'd get it, got harassed anyway. Conspired with my bank to pay him $2,000 in $1 bills, then $500 in pennies. Thank you. Next. Hey everybody. Love this thread. Love that r// So this story is very short. I was working front counter for a very popular fast food chain right next to a pool. It was very common for people to come in wearing only bathing suits. One particular day, a regular came in wearing just a fanny pack and a Speedo. I informed him that it was store policy which was posted on the wall that the store refused to provide service to anyone not wearing a shirt or shoes. He complained, stating that he was a regular, and he just wanted his usual burger and shake. My more anal retentive managers approached him and confirmed that it was indeed the store's policy. Malicious compliance. The man grinned that evil grin that told me he already had thought of something clever, and he said he'd be right back. He left, and about 10 minutes later returned. He was wearing only a t-shirt and sneakers. Like, think Winnie the Pooh. Every bit of his basement on display. He approached and asked for his same order. Rang it up. My manager comes forward absolutely livid, and calls the cops on him, threatening to have him arrested for indecent exposure. The man refuses to leave, stating what he's doing is not against the law. Manager calls the cops and they arrive. They state that in my city's code of ordinance that full nudity is 100% legal provided no children are present. He's not visibly aroused, making gestures towards his junk, discussing or talking about his state of undressed. He was in complete compliance with the law according to the police. The man was asked to leave by the manager, and the cops told him that it was still within the rights of the manager to dismiss him. He asked the manager if he was dressed from now on if he could return. The manager very reluctantly agreed. TLDR, man exploits a no shirt, no shoes, no service rule by entering my restaurant completely bottomless. Cops can't do anything because that was legal. Thank you. Next. Okay, so we're back to my days doing voluntary work. We had a meeting with the chairman of the board of trustees, during which we were asked if we had any ideas or suggestions. A couple were made that actually made sense and were indeed implemented, and we get a typical anything else at the end. Can we have a dartboard or snooker table? I asked, jokingly, for when we're quiet. I'll tell you what, the chairman laughed. If a customer donates one, you can have it. We all laughed at the joke. Meeting ends and I forget about the conversation. That is for about a week or so, when I'm out with my mother, and see a half-sized pool table, complete with cues and balls, sitting outside a local charity shop. I don't know what they call these outside the UK. It's a volunteer-run shop that sells donated goods to help fund a local charity. It wasn't exactly completion grade, more something you might buy for kids to play on, but still perfectly serviceable. I suddenly remember the conversation with the chairman, and tell my mum about what had been said, pointing to the table. Well, she says, I'm a customer of charity I was volunteering at. Go find out how much it is. I go look at the price. It was something like £10.15, certainly under £20. My mum takes the money out of her purse and hands it to me, saying that it's a donation to the charity for all the hard work we do. Not one to look a gift horse in the mouth. I thank her for the money and quickly buy the table before anyone else can. So, next day I'm back doing my charity work, and I walk in with a massive shit-eating grin on my face. Hey, other volunteers. Remember what, chairman, said about a dartboard or snooker table? Everyone looks at me, confused, As I produce the pool table from round the corner, everyone breaks out laughing, even more so when I make it clear that it's not a joke, it actually has been donated by a customer, perfectly within keeping with the stipulations put down by the chairman. Our team leader, who was having trouble standing, she was laughing so much, relents and says we can keep it, so long as we finish any work that needs doing before we play with it, and we never use it when there's a customer around. Thus began 2 weeks of joy. Work was getting done much faster, as everyone wanted a turn at the table. Everyone was happy, and we made sure that we kept to the rules set down by the team leader, not wanting to lose our pool privileges. Unfortunately, all good things must end. One day, when I wasn't there, the chairman paid a surprise visit, and was shocked to see 2 of the volunteers enjoying a quick game between customers. All other work had been done, and there was still someone on the desk to answer the phone and greet visitors. I don't know the exact exchange that took place, but the chairman asked what the hell was going on, and the team leader reminded him of what he'd said at the meeting. She also confirmed that the table had been donated by a customer, even digging out the paperwork to prove that my mother had been registered with the charity for almost a year at that point. But the chairman didn't see the funny side of it, and insisted that the table be gotten rid of. So, start of my next shift, I loaded it into the back of my car. It ended up being donated to a charity fair my mother was helping out at, and someone else got to enjoy it. Thank you. Next. My parents and I were on vacation a few years back, and hanging out at the hotel bar. This place was one of those places that was cheap, but everyone who stayed there thought they were better than everyone else. A couple, male and female, walked in talking about how nice and quaint the bar looked. They sat down at the table next to us. You were supposed to order your drinks at the bar, then sit down. But since it was a slow night, the bartender walked over and served them. Bartender: hi, what can I get you? Male: what wines do you have tonight? Bartender reads off wine list. Female: out of the office, a rose wine would be just perfect. Male: make it 2. Bartender: sure, that'll be $15. Male: we're going to open a tab. Bartender: unfortunately we don't do tabs here, you have to either charge it to your room, or pay cash. He throws his room card on the table. Male: ugh, fine. Charge it to that. They laugh as bartender grabs the card, and heads back to the bar. Bartender pours their drinks, and brings them back over. The first thing they did was hold up the glasses. Female: these are rather small, do you have any bigger glasses? Bartender: unfortunately those are the standard glasses. Male: really? We're paying $7.50 a glass, and you're going to get chintzy on us? Surely you have bigger glasses, come on. Bartender, clearly annoyed: okay, I'll go check. He went to the bar, and came back out with 2 glasses that I think were supposed to be for margaritas, but were at least twice the size as the wine glasses. He held them up for them. Bartender: how are these? Female: oh, those are perfect. Male: yes, thank you. So bartender puts the bigger glasses on their table, then takes the smaller glasses and dumps them into the bigger glasses. Bartender: is there anything else I can help you with? They didn't say anything, just sat there dumbfounded. Bartender: great. My parents and I start losing it. We tried not to laugh, but we were all a bit inebriated, I guess. Bartender looked over at us and smiled. My dad gave him an extra $10 tip and said, thanks for the laughs, don't fuck with the people who serve your drinks, lol.